Intro Algebra Lesson 4-7b. Last time we talked about using a graph to solve an equation. We know that we can use y equals mx plus b or slope-intercept form to take an equation and make a graph and look for where the graph crosses the x-intercept, the x-axis. So these were just some steps we talked about last time. Writing it in the form of ax plus b is equal to 0. In other words, get everything to one side. Then changing it to the function form. In other words, changing the 0 into a y, which means that y equals ax plus b is really the same as y equals mx plus b. We know how to solve, or we know how to graph y equals mx plus b, and where the x-intercept is the answer. That's what we're trying to find. So let's try another example of this. We want to solve this. Now this looks very scary to people. We want to solve this graphically. We're trying to find out where it would cross the x-axis. And rather than being scared of this equation because of all the fractions, we need to be smart about this. And we need to say to ourselves, we actually have some skills that allow us to get rid of those fractions so that we don't have to deal with them. I made a quick adjustment from subtraction to plus -1. That way we don't lose track of our signs. And what we need to realize is that this has a denominator of 2, this has a denominator of 1, and this has a denominator of 2. If we're trying to find a common denominator, 1 is going to be cooperative with any denominator. So we need something that really 2 can go into, which is 2. So we will multiply this entire problem by 2 over 1. I know we've talked about this in class. Some of us still struggle with this concept. But you are doing this to make it easier for yourself. So every term of this problem is going to need to be multiplied by 2. And the beauty of it is, it will wipe out the fractions and you won't have to worry about those fractions. So 2 over 1 times 5 over 2x, that's going to give us 5x. 2 over 1 times -1 over 1, that's going to give us -2. And 2 over 1 times 9 over 2x, 9x. This is much simpler for us to deal with. It doesn't have the fractions. It doesn't have something that we can freak out about. Not to say you couldn't deal with the fractions. You could still do the same thing. I'm just trying to give you a trick to get rid of the fractions to make it easier. According to step 1, we're supposed to get everything onto one side. So we could add -9x to both sides. Those would cancel out, and we'd have -4x plus -2 is equal to 0. That's all step 1. Make it equal to 0. Like I said, you could do that with the fractions, but you'd have to be careful of your answers. It may or may not come out to something nice and easy like this. Step 2, replace that 0 with the letter y. And we are now ready to graph. I'll rearrange it so the y is first. I'll just take everything and switch it around. Y equals -4x plus -2, which if you would like, you can make it have rise over run. So it's telling you to go down 4 and right 1. Now, we can go to our graph over here. Let's spread it out a little bit. There's 1, there's -2, there's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to make this nice and spread out so I can see any details that might be possible. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it's well spread out. Now, according to this, my y-intercept is at -2. So I should be putting a dot at -2. And it tells me to go down 4 and right 1. The problem is going down 4 and right 1 is going to take me off the graph. I don't really want to go down 4 at all. I want to go up because I want to cross the x-axis. The solution is where we cross the x-axis. So remember, if you have a slope of -4 over 1, it's the same as 4 over -1. So now I know I can go up 4 and left 1. If I go up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and left 1, I'm going to be right there. I can go up again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and left 1. I certainly have enough to make my graph because I have 3 points. And there we have our graph of that equation. And the solution that I'm looking for is where it crosses the x-axis. And it appears to be crossing the x-axis right there, which means x equals -1/2. If that's -1 and that's 0, it's going to be halfway between. -1/2 is the answer. You could test it and see if it works up here. If you multiply 9 times -1/2, you'll get -4.5. If you multiply 3 times -1/2, you're going to get -2.5. Negative 2.5 plus negative 2 is in fact negative 4.5. So it does work in the original problem. Again, get everything onto one side so it equals 0, replace the 0 with y, and then graph that equation. Where it crosses the x-axis is your solution, and you might need to adjust your slope to take you up or down so that you can cross the x-axis. That's your solution.